What is up, everybody? Welcome in. DFSarmy MLB pre-lock show. What is it? Wednesday. 8-game slate on DraftKings. I don't remember how many games on FanDuel because they decided to include every game, it looks like. 14-game slate on FanDuel. And some reason StreamYard is driving me nuts. It's showing the live show in a super tiny image. So this is going to be fun. Anyways, I'm rolling solo right now. Potential co-hosts are dealing with weather, as am I right now. But why is everything so small? I don't know. But yeah, welcome in, everybody. Why do we have separate slates? I'm not necessarily sure. That's the annoying part, especially for somebody like me, as I'm trying to figure out why everything's showing so small on the screen. 1 second, and I will try to figure this out here. We'll just rock with this layout, even though I'm by myself. Anyways, what a shit show to begin the show. We're here talking about some baseball action on Wednesday. Shouldn't have much weather to worry about, which makes things easier on me. Let's switch over to FanDuel if I can get the DS to load here. Since we have 14 games to look at, it's kind of annoying. Oops. Come on. I am dealing with storms here as well, but I still have internet while those guys do not. Hopefully, you guys are doing fine out there. Like I mentioned, 14 game slate on FanDuel. DraftKings does not include 4 games that have totals in the 9 or 10 range. So, vastly different slates, really. A lot of offense in those early 6 games, to be honest. Yeah, it's humid here, but yeah, we just got a massive downpour, which is wild. My daughter's coach is still saying they're planning on having practice, which is blowing my mind right now. But we'll see. It means I have to get out of here fairly quickly over the next 40 minutes or so. So I'm trying to fire through all this, hopefully touch on some of the questions you guys do have. From a pitching standpoint, it's annoying. Two pretty different slates. Really, it's annoying because I think there's some good pitchers on that early slate despite the totals. Like Shane McClanahan probably would be my favorite GPP pitcher on FanDuel. We see from an ownership, he's 6%. He's the 6th highest owned. I don't really love Garrett Cole that much. Tampa Bay doesn't really strike out all that much, but to be able to get Garrett Cole at 8,400 on FanDuel seems like a value option. So it might be somebody I'd want to sprinkle in if I was playing FanDuel. George Kirby, another one. I prefer him pitching at home traditionally. I don't remember what his splits are this season. I admittedly had not looked at that game because I basically only play DraftKings. But Kirby'd be somebody I'd sprinkle in at 4% ownership as well. I'd probably consider some Foster Griffin, even though he's somebody I do expect regression from. Problem is at 10.1K, I don't really feel great about it. I don't feel great about 10.3K for Troy Melton either. Uh, both seem like extreme price points that I don't necessarily want to go to. That's probably it from those 6 gamers for a pitcher standpoint. Yeah, nothing really. I don't really want pitching in the Cubs game at all. So uh, makes it a little bit easier. From the rest of the games, uh, we definitely see Mackenzie Gore as the super chalk, which is kind of why I was leaning towards McClanahan as kind of a pivot off of that chalk. Gore is volatile, but he's obviously far better when at home. He's taking on an Angel squad that strikes out plenty. A little shocked to see so popular, especially on FanDuel, because he's not guaranteed to get 6+ innings. He hasn't thrown in 10 or 11 days, but it's probably just a way to skip him in the rotation, keep his innings lower. He's coming off of a 10 strikeout performance, so the upside's there. The overall Cleveland lineup's weak enough. Plus, I believe his home numbers are far better than what his away numbers are. So I think it makes sense. I just don't know if he should be the second highest owned pitcher for us this evening. I think Chase Burns is probably the guy that I want to be heaviest on FanDuel if I was compared to the field. I love McClanahan too, but I think Chase Burns is in for some potential big upside. His best start of the season came against Philadelphia, so I like it. Philadelphia is without Trey Turner leading off as well, so changes things a little bit over there in that matchup. Some of the other names I'm looking like, I've been staring at the DK ownership all day, so it's easier for me to just flip over here from a DK standpoint. Christian Scott, I wrote him up in my What Do We Win When We Win article for the members of DFS Army. 20% at Christian Scott is a no thank you for me. Michael King, Davis Martin are guys that I'm sprinkling in. I like Kyle Harrison, but I really like Jake Bennett at sub 6%, the way that he's thrown. And I realized the season-long numbers for the White Sox kind of make it look like a tougher matchup. I do believe their overall numbers against left-handed pitching have come down over the last month or two. So I just think that Jake Bennett makes a lot of sense from an upside standpoint. I've considered, Walbert Urena a little bit. Might still get there. He's not somebody that excites me all that much, but, for me, it's mostly chalky at pitcher on DK. With some sprinkle of Walbert, Jake Bennett for sure, some Harrison because he just has such strong upside. And to get him at a fraction of the ownership of Mackenzie Gore, when I think they're very similar pitchers from a volatility standpoint, it's kind of where I want to go. Kind of take some stands in that regard. That's kind of all I have for pitching. If you guys have any questions about pitchers, fire them out. Being by myself makes it a little tougher for a live show to give you guys different point of views for the different websites. But I'm kind of playing it similar to the way I played it last night. Last night felt really good about a few pitchers. Taj Bradley, DeGrom, Wheeler, and Robleski, and then I was mixing in, a handful of other guys, just a 10 to 20% range, and really going heavy on those guys. I don't really have a ton of interest on Springs. I don't really like him as a pitcher. I haven't really seen what he's done recently because he's just not somebody I ever considered. If you're going dirt cheap on FanDuel, just play Roki Sasaki and live with the volatility is kind of the way I think of it over there. They're virtually the same price. But I just don't know that we see that early of season Springs anytime soon. He just gives up so many runs. Like he's given up 6 earned in 3 out of his last 4 starts. Uh, One of those was against Colorado. He pitched in San Francisco 2 starts ago, which is an elite pitcher's park, and he still only put up 25 FanDuel points. So I'd rather play for the upside of Sasaki if I'm spending down. Um, or, Connor Prelip is 7,600, so it's not like he's super expensive either. So I think that's kind of where I would go. From a hitting standpoint, the Dodgers are the chalk. The Reds being the second highest owned is kind of surprising, at least on DK. Let's switch over to FanDuel since we have more teams to look at. Dodgers and then Washington. Washington makes sense just because they've been so good for GPP upside recently. Cincinnati, I'm going to play some Cincinnati, but they're struggling enough where I'm not sold. They're one of the worst batter wobas on the slate. How many, we can't have 27 teams playing. So it's 28, right? So one of these rankings is off or tied. But the 25th ranked batter woba for the metrics, probably not ideal. Now, Rangel isn't as dominant, obviously, as Zach Wheeler, so I can understand it a little bit. I just don't think they should be the third highest owned offense. Especially on the FanDuel slate where you get access to Baltimore, you get access to the Cubs, you get access to Houston, Atlanta, Pittsburgh. The A's as well. Who was pitching for Detroit? Troy Melton. I mean, Melton's fine. But, yeah, seeing Cincinnati be so strongly owned, shouldn't say strongly. It's not like they're a ton of percentages, but the third highest on FanDuel, second highest on DK. That's kind of a spot where I'm going to be underweight on them. You notice on FanDuel, the 2, 4, 5, 6 spots are all on teams in that early portion of the slate that aren't on the DK main slate. I'm a big fan of the Mets. I hate the fact that both teams put up a bunch of runs last night. So that bothers me a little bit, but I'm just a big fan of that game, especially the Mets side. And they are the number one leverage rank stack on FanDuel tonight for our metrics. So big fan of the Mets spot this evening. The number one point per dollar rank, number 2 implied run total behind the Dodgers. So just an interesting spot. I definitely love the Cubs Orioles spot a little bit. So I think I'd be pretty heavy in that game. As far as for the games on the both main slates, definitely Kansas City and the Mets. Kind of like Boston for a little bit of offense. Colorado, LA. Because if you're not a Sasaki believer, based on what he's done, I think you can mix in some Colorado stacks. I normally don't love stacking them away from home, but at least it's in a plus split spot to where they get Mickey Moniak back in the lineup. And their left-handed hitters are just in a better spot now. So I kind of like the Colorado side a little bit there. You see that they're the second lowest owned team on FanDuel tonight, which for me, just it doesn't sit right. I'm going to definitely be heavier on them. I like them more than St. Louis, more than Cleveland. I like them more than the Yankees on FanDuel. The Yankees offense has just struggled so much. We've talked about it recently that we've been playing pitching against Sasaki 30%. Is that on DK right now? Yeah, it is 28. Unless you got to update again. Yeah, 31%. On FanDuel, Roki is 10%, so a little more tolerable over there. Um, on DK, I think I might end up being underweight on Sasaki. I haven't decided on my percentages yet, but I don't know that I want to rely on 30 to 40% Roki Sasaki right now. Um, I think Boston is super interesting from a stack standpoint tonight as well. I was kind of high on them last night. They weren't bad, but they weren't as great as I wanted them to be. I just think Boston's probably another team that people overlook. And to be honest, I haven't played them much this year because I was using pitching against them for the first, at least 2 months, maybe 2.5 months of the season. Um, from a projected points and everything standpoint, just kind of looking at some of these teams, San Diego's one that's kind of up there in projected points per player, not high owned, decent implied run total. Probably somebody that makes sense, to be honest. We've been burned more than we've benefited from playing San Diego this season because the offense has been so terrible. But I do think they have guys that can perform. Uh, Jake Cronenworth's the guy that I like being back. They're number one in the pitcher Woba category, so it's a great matchup for them. It's kind of why I'm gonna go heavier on San Diego than the field. Um, they do, like I said, the number one spot. Colorado number two in that metric. Detroit number three against Jeffrey Springs on the FanDuel main slate, and then the Mets. So, 3 stacks out of the 4 are ones that I really want to use on DraftKings. I'd probably use some Detroit on FanDuel, but I'm kind of indifferent. I much prefer them when I can use Kerry Carpenter and feel better about playing Riley Green. But uh, Detroit is priced nice enough with the power they do have. And I don't really expect Springs to go much more than 4 or 5. So then you get into a bullpen. I think you're going to see Kerry Carpenter, etc. So the problem with stacking Detroit is they do rely so much on platoon splits. So you're going to see multiple guys exit the game once a right-handed pitcher comes in from the bullpen. Like I would imagine Kerry Carpenter, Colt Keith probably enter the game. Maybe McKinstry. I haven't seen what their lineup is or anything, but those are just guys off the top of my head that if they're on the bench, I can imagine them entering the game and creating some issues for your stacks. Yeah, I wish there was somebody available to join me today. Make things a lot easier. I hate these solo shows because I can fly right through my thoughts, but I've obviously given a bunch of my thoughts through article, through my pitching video, through my notes. So it's kind of redundantly broadcast to you guys. You firing questions, I'll certainly do my best to answer them. But we'll go position by position right now while I wait a little bit. Probably on the Baltimore catchers on the FanDuel main slate. On DraftKings, I think I'm leaning more towards Dalton Rushing again. Should bring up my notes. Yeah, Dalton Rushing or Salvi Perez seem like the guys that I want to go with at catcher on DK. First base, plenty of names to roll with. Michael Busch on FanDuel feels like he makes a ton of sense to me. Even Pete Alonso, I guess, in that same game makes some sense as well. On DK, Cody Clemens isn't first base eligible on DK. I'm going to go with Josh Bell, probably. OPS approaching 1,400 over the last week. Just 3,300 on DK. I think Josh Bell's fairly interesting. Second base, Cody Clemens makes a lot of sense on DK. Like the upside there. Luke Keyshaw. But my favorite second baseman is going to be Jake Cronenworth tonight. Swinging it pretty well since his return from the IL. And like I mentioned, I think you can pick on the Arizona starting pitcher this evening. Third base, I think there's plenty of names to choose from, like there has been a lot recently. Kind of like Manny Machado, which I think you'll rarely hear me say that, but tonight I think I do like Machado. Curtis Mead, just the power plays, the way that he's been swinging it. Cody Clemens is viable on FanDuel. Tommy Edman could be as well. I think that's where I'd be at. Third base wise, shortstop. Gunner probably makes the most sense to me. Generally not a huge Mookie fan at this point. One name that's been absolutely on fire. I'm not sure if you can play them there on FanDuel. You apparently can't, or he's magically not in the lineup. Let's look. Oh, he's second base eligible on FanDuel. Shortstop eligible on DK, Tyler Tolbert. Had 12 straight hits and then made it out his last at-bat last night, but just performing really well. And when guys are that locked in at the plate, I am going to be interested in them. So he's a value option at the shortstop position on DK. The outfield position, obviously, we always have a ton of options. Favorite outfielder overall tonight is going to be Juan Soto. The way that he's swinging it, just gets on base so often. I probably don't need to explain why I like Juan Soto. I like the Colorado outfielders for GPP upside. Whoever they might end up being tonight, Carrick, Moniak, McCarthy, etc. FanDuel only outfielders for us. James Wood just keeps hitting home runs, so he's somebody that probably would be the highest ownership I have in the outfield on FanDuel, if I'm being honest. Probably mix in some Michael Harris. Jordan always, even left on left, makes a ton of sense to me as well. Yeah, Tolbert's just he's only 2,500 on DK tonight. So, I mean, he's one of those guys you don't want them to just max out his price point because, like, after this little hot stretch, he's going to go back to being a bench-only guy. Like, he was just a pinch runner for the most part until this recent stretch. So at some point, he's going to go back to that role, and, like, then we don't want to see him showing up as, like, 4K on DK and, 3,200 on FanDuel because he's just never going to get played. Like, that's why they don't accelerate some people. But there are a number of guys that they completely miss out on adjusting correctly. But yeah, that's unfortunately really all I have when doing this alone. I obviously would much prefer being able to spread it out, getting responses from other coaches here just to give you guys different angles, single entry angle, cash angles, etc. Because my brain just does not think in that style, I guess, at this point. So it's just tougher for me to do. But yeah, he was in all of my top finishing lineups. I was a AJ Ewing single and run scored away from taking down some contests last night, so that was annoying to see him do that in the 8th inning, I believe it was. But yeah, Any other questions out there? Otherwise, I'm just going to call it good at 25, 26 minutes in on a solo show. Expect to have somebody back with me on Friday for sure. I'll give you guys a couple minutes. Fire anything else out there that you might want to. I'm working through trying to get my stacks entered in on the side. But yeah, I'm just mad at AJ Ewing. Because I was in first place and the dude jumped me with that AJ Ewing single in the 8th inning last night. Thoughts on the Marlins offense? I'm not interested in the Marlins on a 14-game slate. I like Kirby enough to think that I just don't need to stack against him. I might sprinkle in some guys, but Kirby's been really good in his last, month now. So it's tough to want to go there. He's one of those guys that rarely gets blown up, to be honest. I'd sprinkle in like Stowers, Owen Casey, those type, but I don't want to be too invested in them at this point. But yeah. Like I said, that's pretty much all that I have for you guys, unfortunately. But we'll be back normal on Friday, I believe. Obviously, don't quote me on that because, weather decides a lot of these things with the internet, etc. Appreciate you guys still checking it out, even though knowing that it's just me by myself makes it a little just worse overall, right? From your side of view, I think it's still tough to just watch a solo guy kind of blabber his way through 20 to 30 minutes. But it at least gets us a way to talk through some things. It still helps me out talking things out because then I can play devil's advocate in my own mind when hearing it out loud. But then also you guys can throw questions and then it gets me thinking more as well. So again, appreciate you guys checking it out. If you are members of DFS Army, hit us up in Discord. If you are not, what are you doing? Promo code BESTBALL2026 gets you 20% off any NFL or VIP Core 4 membership. The Core 4 does include baseball. If you want to join us for just baseball only, you can use promo code RAZ for 10% off monthly. There's a link in the description below. You can use that link to access that. Yeah. That's all I got. We're back Friday around the same time. Probably 2-man, maybe even a 3-man show. Not really sure. Haven't scheduled it out yet, but I appreciate you guys checking it out. Helmets up tonight. Best of luck, and we will catch you in 48-ish hours. Peace.
Got the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block. Helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision. We got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted.